In this comparative study, I will be comparing Interstellar by Christopher Nolan and 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick. I will be comparing their historical and cultural context, and how it affects the portrayal of science fiction films. The sci-fi genre often warns us of threats with new technologies, and its implications for humanity, such as the dangers of AI seen in 2001: A Space Odyssey, often also including extraterrestrial beings. The earliest science fiction film thought to be made is A Trip to the Moon by George Méliès. From the 1920s to the late 1940s, there was a shift in the attitudes towards filmmaking in Hollywood, with studio-based films being created. A minimal number of sci-fi films were made. A noticeable increase in the quality and quantity of sci-fi was in the 1950s and 60s at the start of the Apollo missions and the space race, including Planet of the Apes, Solaris, Back to the Future, and Avatar, possibly as a want for more diverse content, but also filmmakers use sci-fi to examine ethical and societal implications of emerging technologies, which is highly relevant in today's society of the uprising of AI. When Stanley Kubrick began work on 2001 in the mid-1960s, he was told by studio executive Lee Wasserman, "Kid, you don't spend over $1 million on science fiction movies, you just don't do that." Other examples include The Matrix, with its complex themes focusing on free will and humans' perception of reality in conjunction with technology, and Terminator is a great example of how humans can react to AI gone rogue. 2001: A Space Odyssey is more abstract and philosophical, focusing on the larger scale of evolution, while Interstellar combines accurate, scientific concepts from the works of renowned scientist Stephen Hawking, with the research that went into the film, even uncovering a new astrophysics concept called spaghettification. Interstellar also has a deeper story emphasizing on human emotion, connection, and relationships. When overlooking story and themes, pacing sets these two films apart, establishing a contrast in how the viewer engages with the messages conveyed. 2001 unfolds at a deliberate, slow, and thoughtful tempo, featuring shots that linger for tens of seconds, such as the first reveal of a spacecraft. However, Interstellar adopts a more rapid and dynamic pace. This divergence aligns with the thematic underpinnings of each film. Nolan seeks to depict the urgency and anxiety around the impacts of climate change on a more personal level, while Kubrick delves into the details of evolution and gradual transformation over a longer period of time. The creation of 2001 was influenced by a number of historical, political, and cultural contributions. The film was created during the beginning of the Cold War, reflecting the geopolitical tension of the time, with the space mission featuring an American spacecraft, Discovery 1, and a depiction of the evils of the USSR with artificial intelligence HAL 9000. This reflected the real-world space race dynamics between the USA and the USSR. It was one of the first films of its time, pushing the limits of what could be achieved with the technology they had to create films in the 60s, using models ranging up to 17 meters big and rotating sets for the shots of the Discovery 1 spaceship. Similarly, Interstellar was created due to current issues of a different kind, not so much a war with another country, but in some ways a war with our own planet. Interstellar is much more direct with the historical and cultural issues it is trying to portray. Interstellar draws on scientific accuracy, environmental concerns, emotional storytelling to create a cinematic experience that corresponds with the issues of today, such as overpopulation, global warming, and intergalactic research. The film combines abstract fiction with emotional interconnection, exploring the potential future of humanity and the stars. A quote from Nolan on the inspiration of Interstellar from 2001 is, "There is a trust in simple storytelling and simple image making that actually takes massive confidence to try and emulate." One prominent feature between both films lies in the sound and dialogue. Interstellar features a steady, conversational-based storyline, while 2001: A Space Odyssey relies on minimal speech. In addition, certain shots in 2001 are deliberately silent, mirroring the vacuum of space where sound cannot travel. This absence of sound is also evident in Interstellar, such as the docking scene. Christopher Nolan collaborated with Hans Zimmer, known for his deep, thrumming soundscapes. In contrast, Stanley Kubrick's 2001 utilizes a more classical-based soundtrack, for example, the Blue Danube Waltz, featuring the dramatic reveal of a spacecraft, creating an ironic juxtaposition. The scarce speech in 2001 aligns with Kubrick's show-don't-tell concept, originating from the silent film era. illustrated in the scenes such as Hal's lip-reading the astronauts. This leads us to the largest difference between the two films, their contrasting attitudes towards technology, alternating between threat and hope. Interstellar views technology as a way of pushing humanity forward and saving them, while Kubrick displays technology as a threat and how humans work better when in the absence of technology, or AI, stripping down to the basics of what humans are. These relate back to the times the films were made. 2001 was made in a time of great political tension, with the space race and Apollo missions, with the US trying to beat Russia to the moon. It is no surprise that people were interested, but wary of this new innovations, with Apollo 1 exploding in 1967, a year before the film was made. On the other hand, looking at Interstellar, we see how Nolan uses technology as an aid to save humanity, possibly as a subtle message to try and use the technology that we have in order to save our planet from global warming or other desperate issues. The cinematography of both these films highlights the times that they were made, most notably the stillness of Kubrick's shots, focusing on composition within the picture while keeping the camera absolutely still, while Nolan uses a much more shaky camera to enhance the realism, but also CGI looks better when there is motion blur from the camera to blend it in better. The nearly 50-year span between the creation of the two films highlights a substantial period of innovation, particularly in visual effects. Notably, the key technological differences lies in the capacity for computers to generate CGI and be used to edit films, like Interstellar. Considering film as a medium, it's relatively new, with 2001 emerging just 60 years after it became a mainstream entertainment service and a mere 10 after the introduction of colour film. The time between the creation of both films has seen significant changes in how cultural and social aspects have influenced filmmaking, introducing advancements in camera technology, sound production, and editing processes. This is evidently shown in both films and their approach to filmmaking, and is then represented on screen. The colour of Hal is red, which is often associated with danger. The malfunction of Hal shows the distrust society has on AI, with the initial complete trust the astronauts had on Hal ultimately leading to their death, shows the skeptical view people had on new technology. Interstellar introduces a more optimistic perspective, suggesting that responsible and purposefulness use of technology can offer hope and pave the way for the survival and progression of humanity. Both films revolve around an intriguing theme of space travel motivating their characters. However, 2001 delves into deep elements like human evolution, technological advancements, the dangers of artificial intelligence, and the mysterious influence of extraterrestrial or unknown entities. On the other hand, Interstellar takes a more personal approach, emphasizing character-driven narratives, which could be argued as a common thread between both films. However, with Interstellar, the focus is on individual stories, in contrast to 2001, which primarily explores the broader concept, which again is evolution. The vastness of space is often illustrated with isolation and loneliness. In both films, the astronauts face the challenges of extended time and space, either on their own or with a small crew. The directors used different means for their depiction of isolation. For Kubrick, he used slow pacing of shots with focus on the mundane sounds, such as the spacepod scene. Nolan uses his cinematography with wide-open shots to show the vast, open universe, for example, showing the scale of spacecraft in comparison to the black hole. Nolan placed a strong emphasis on the personal and emotional connections between the characters. The bond between the protagonist Cooper and his daughter Murph is a strong central narrative. The film explores the impact of time dilation on these relationships. Kubrick displays emotional connection in a more abstract way, focusing on the evolution of humanity and the mysterious meetings with the monoliths. The emotional significance is less centered on the individual relationships. In fact, the only 2 times connection is shown from the spacecraft are both in the form of video calls, both about birthdays. This is a subtle way of showing time passing and human connection outside the conversations with Hal. In conclusion, this comparative study of Interstellar and 2001: A Space Odyssey shows an exciting evolution of science fiction, captivating snapshots of their respected eras, reflecting the anxieties, hopes, and social attitudes towards science, technology, and humanity's place in the universe. While both films share a lot of common themes, such as the relationship man has with their dependencies on technology, they differ in the interpretation of its usefulness or dangers.